We are now going to start with the next chapter, that is chapter number 6 about demand forecasting. In this particular chapter, we would be covering what exactly is the concept of demand forecasting. We will see and discuss the various techniques of demand forecasting, whereby we will be covering the qualitative technique as well as quantitative techniques in order to measure demand forecasting. We would also try to describe the limitations of demand forecasting, and we'll see what are the steps for demand forecasting. At the end, we'll be trying to find out the criteria for good demand forecasting. So let's start with the case study. It's about Coke blind taste test demand forecasting. The Coca-Cola Company is an American corporation that is engaged in the business of manufacturing, retailing, marketing of non-alcoholic beverages, concentrates and syrups. The company is headquartered in Atlanta. In 1970s, the company conducted a blind taste test on about 2 lakhs consumer approximately, where the consumers were not informed of what they were about to taste. The company made the consumer taste 3 different compositions: the original Coke, the new Coke composition and Pepsi, its competitor's drink. Of 2 lakhs consumer, only 30,000 consumer tasted the composition. Apart from this, the company also surveyed the consumers randomly in order to gauge their reaction towards the change in the Coke's new composition. Based on the analysis, it was decided to change its drink formulation to a more sweeter one. After the blind taste test, the new Coke was launched into the market with a new packaging. However, the new Coke didn't get much of a good response. Owing to the condition, the company had to quickly react and change back to the original formula, that is the original Coke. This is a classic example of how wrong selection of demand forecasting technique led to companies' loss of resources and revenue. Now in this case study, we have already seen that Coke has a very good brand which was there established in the market. It was since 1970, it was doing good and the consumers were very happy about it. But selecting a wrong technique went wrong for their own strategies as well, and thus they again rolled back to the original Coke taste which they launched before. Hence, it is very important that in the coming chapters, we would be trying to find out what are the different techniques related to knowing how the demand forecasting can be done, and we will see what is a qualitative and quantitative technique and what best technique can be suiting a definite structure or a company where the demand forecasting is done or carried away. Now in this particular thing, I don't think so a blind taste test would have been worked. Since they already had a good brand in the market, they could have been informed to the consumer that we are coming up with so and so product, and why shouldn't you give them a good feedback on that, or whatever the feedback would be, whether it is negative or positive. After tasting it, and well-informed decision could have been taken instead of just carrying over with blind taste test. Now this is just a very small case study which is depicting you with the fact that whether it is a big company or a smaller one, whoever is carrying out with a demand forecasting technique, they should be very much clear with the selection of the forecasting technique, and also all the steps should be followed in a regular pattern, and analysis and interpretation then only would hold significance. If the data collection is not done in a proper way, or there is some mismatch which has happened, the end result would not be promising, and hence there would be a loss to the company, because anyways forecasting and all these procedures require a huge expense, and the bare and it is a bearing to the company as well in terms of financial requirement as well. So basically, since we have seen and have got some idea about what is a forecasting, so now let's see how does it work. So a technique for anticipating future demand for a product is demand forecasting. However, the strength of the projection is significantly influenced by the quantity and the quality of the data, the methods used to calculate it, and the user's level of competence is taken into consideration. To predict demand forecasting method more accurately, supply chain managers usually use a variety of sales prediction, and each of those uses a different demand forecasting approach. The forecast accuracy is dependent on the validity of the demand planning data and the extent to which the outside circumstances collaborate the demand plan's underlying assumption. The first step in creating a demand prediction is to have a firm understanding of the challenges. It would further help to look for the accurate solution into it. The best demand forecasting models and method will be determined in these steps. Moreover, it is very important to look for questions such as, does being mindful of seasonal demand assist you in controlling inventory year round? Or is it necessary to use supply chain analytics to find weak points in your supply chain and so? Evidently, planning for the upcoming events require much more inputs than planning for the current event. Even though past demand projections may serve as a starting point, it's not only indication by any means. Thus, a demand forecasting helps reduce risk and make efficient financial decisions that impact profit margin, cash flow, allocation of the resources, opportunity for expansion, inventory accounting, operating cost, staffing, and overall spend. All strategic and operational plans are formulated around forecasting methods or forecasting demand. There are many reasons why demand forecasting is an important process for any company. Now let's take an example wherein with sales forecasting, a business have information to assist with planning, goal setting and budgeting. With a good understanding of what your future sales may look like, it is possible to build and inform procurement strategy in order to ensure your supply matches with the consumer demand at a specific product level. Organization can more effectively optimize their inventory level, increase inventory turnover rates and reduce holding cost. With sales forecasting, business are also able to identify and rectify any issues in the sales pipeline ahead of time in order to keep business performance steady throughout the entire period. In terms of inventory management, most e-commerce business owners know that too little or too much inventory can be detrimental to operations. Demand forecasting basically provides an insight into upcoming cash flow, so business can be more accurately budget payments for supplier and other operational costs, while still investing in the growth of the business can be carried along. In general, we know the significance of demand forecasting is very essential. Demand forecasting is a crucial tool because it helps the organization to see or foresee the consumer wants and make plans approximately accordingly. Furthermore, demand forecasting planning helps business plan, production and inventory management, set pricing and adjust marketing and sales efforts. This further enables company to move effectively, meet client demand and manage short and long-term objective in a proactive manner. Accurate forecasting helps business to minimize cost associated with over or under stocking, reduce lost sales due to stock outs and ensure that consumer orders are fulfilled on time. Demand forecasting can be for various levels. Those levels we are going to discuss after certain period of time. But as of now, you should know that demand forecasting can be defined as a process of predicting the future demand for any organization's goods or service. It helps the organization to take various business decisions such as planning, production, purchasing of raw materials, managing funds and deciding the price of its product. Hence, demand can be forecasted by organization either internally by making estimates, or they can take the help of some specialist or consultant or some market research agencies. There are various bases on which the demand forecasting can be segregated. It could be segregated on the basis of level of forecasting, which is bifurcated as firms level, industry level and economy level. The second basis could be with regard to time period involved. Now the time period can be further bifurcated as short-term forecasting or a long-term forecasting. The another criteria that we are going to use would be the nature of the product. Either it could be a consumer goods or it could be based on the capital goods forecasting. So this is a general basis how we are going to bifurcate or what is the basis of demand forecasting. Coming to the discussion one by one for all these levels, demand forecasting can be done at firms level, industry level and economy level. At the firms level, the demand is forecasted for products and service of an individual organization in the future. So suppose I am talking about Tata Steel as a company and I am trying to forecast their sales for so and so year. Now I am talking about a single industry or a single firm here, that is Tata Steel. So that is it at the firm's level. So we are trying to find out at the firm's level. At the industry level, the collective demand for the products and services for all the organization in a particular industry is forecasted. So here it is a very common scenario when we are saying industry, that means sum of all the firms operating for the same set of activities. So let's say steel industry, that is one industry which I am talking about. So it could be Tata Steel, it could be Jindal, it could be any other steel manufacturing firm which is collectively taken into consideration. So that would be at the industry level. Now the third bifurcation I told you was from the economy level. That means how it would impact the economy, how the demand and for the product or the supply for the product would be anticipated. So when we are talking about at a wholesome aspect and its implications, that is from the economy level. So on the other hand, at the economy level, the aggregate demand for products and services in the economy as a whole is anticipated. Now, on the basis of time, as we have already discussed, it is differentiated into two categories, that is short-term forecasting and a long-term forecasting. Now, any guesses what is a short-term forecasting or a long-term forecasting? So, when we are using the word short-term, it is for a shorter period of time. Let's say less than a year. So the technique of predicting short-term demand for any goods or service is called as short-term demand forecasting. So typically this kind of forecasting is used to make plans for a specific time period, such as, let's say, upcoming few weeks or month. It is employed basically to assist businesses in making choices regarding production, inventory level, pricing and so on. Short-term demand forecasting can be done using various methods. It could be statistical method, it could be economic models, it could be customer survey, it could be market research or anything. When we are talking about long-term demand forecasting, this is basically for a longer period of time. Let's say more than 5 years, 10 years and so on. So this is an analytical process or procedure is used to foretell future demand for any goods or services over a period of time. It is further used to plan and allocate resources to meet future demand and to identify the potential opportunities and risks. Long-term demand forecasting typically uses both qualitative and quantitative model to approach, and they try to predict accordingly. Hence, it plays a very important role in taking good long-term decisions, such as deciding about production capacity, replacing machinery, coming up with new innovative products in the future, etc. The next basis is with regard to nature of the product. Product can be categorized into a consumer goods or a capital goods. Demand forecasting differs from these two types of products. The first one being consumer goods. I hope we all are aware of what exactly a consumer goods are. So those goods that have a direct demand or that is meant for final consumption, those kind of goods are called as a consumer goods. So whatever goods I am demanding and I am consuming it for myself for the final consumption, that is what a consumer goods are. When we are talking about capital goods, any guesses what is meant by a capital goods? Well, these goods are required to produce consumer goods. For example, raw materials. Thus, these goods have derived demand. The demand forecasting of capital goods depends on demand of consumer goods. For example, prediction of higher demand for consumer goods would result in the anticipation of higher demand of capital goods too. Now, what are the different needs of demand forecasting? That we are going to deal in the next slide. Thank you.